Okay, ladies and gentlemen, you know who I am. Let's talk about history. Um, my This is kind of like the wrap up for the entire Christianity in the ancient world and for Rome as well. One of the things that this latest series of documents was not meant to live in a vacuum. It wasn't. In other words, it's not just meant for you to answer the questions here and move on and just use this as the basis of all your answers. You're supposed to build on your knowledge and in everything you do. When you write a paper about anything, it's not just the knowledge that you've gained most recently connected to that paper, but knowledge you've gained in other papers and other things that you've read that help build your knowledge. You really are a sum of all of those things that's impacted you throughout your life. And this is kind of the same concept. When you're writing and you're talking about, ancient Christianity, you also should be talking about the stuff about the fall of Rome and what built Rome up, possibly. So how do I mean? Let's be specific, because you don't want me to ramble on and not give you a something more specific. Here's something very specific. When we look at the condition of the people of Rome, how they lived, the stratification of the way people lived. In other words, you have the emperor at the top, and then you have the nobility, the patricians beneath them, and then you have different classes like the first class, second class, third class, fourth class, fifth class. I think there's a sixth class, but it might just end at five, or the sixth might be part of the knights. Regardless, then there's the plebes. 95% or 90%, probably 85% of the population of Rome were the plebes, the nobodies, the head count. They were the ones that didn't matter, and so you need to you wouldn't know that in reading the documents um, on ancient Christianity. You wouldn't have known that. You learn that from our conversations, but also from the discussions that we've had about the fall of Rome, because one of the reasons why Rome was to so hard for it to succeed eventually was because it was killing itself. It was poisoning itself. It was poisoning itself with, and you know this because we talked about this with the Fall of Rome documents, it was killing itself with the bad leadership. It was killing itself with the idea of the high taxes. It was killing itself by the people not believing that they were Roman. And Christianity inserts itself into this when the system is collapsing, and people who are higher up are the ones who are succeeding, and the ones who are lower up or lower at the bottom are the ones who are facing the consequences. So this is information that you can pull together. Again, when we look at you can look at the time period when Jesus was alive, and you can see that what was going on in Rome at the time historically, and we've talked about this. It was right after Julius Caesar, and actually we would have been talking about this more if we hadn't had COVID. Um, we would have talked about how after Caesar was assassinated, his nephew was his heir, and his adopted son was who was Octavian. He came along, and there was another civil war within Rome, and the civil war was just finishing up when Jesus was born. About because there's always people arguing about what date Jesus was born and what year Jesus was born and what year he was crucified. People argue about that all the time because the calendars are so screwy and messy and not normal. So we look at that, and we know that kind of turmoil. You would have known when we talked about it with Augustus coming to power. Augustus became a very stabilizing influence for Rome because he was young when he came to power, and he lived a long time. And he did kind of set the rules and the precedents for emperors. So, but that was during Jesus's life, and then and also his the people he was related to, that like Nero and Caligula, who were all part of the same family line of Caesars. So this time period was a very stable time period for the most part, and then we see the crumbling of Rome starts with a bunch of bad emperors, and the next 300 years, it takes 300 years, just wrap that in your head. 300 years is longer than the United States has been around as a country. Just putting that in your head. 300 years it took for Rome to completely, finally collapse after after the people who were related to Julius Caesar. So, you can't live in a vacuum. You need to look at these answers, because you should be working on your essay. I'm assuming most of you, probably have finished most of these documents. Generally, it's good to get them done sooner rather than waiting to the last minute. And you do know that there's an essay coming, and you know what the essay is going to say. The essay is going to say, why did Christianity take hold in the ancient world? That's the question you're going to have to answer. And that's an important key, and it's all wrapped into that idea of the society of Rome falling apart, and the idea also that equality is a key component of ancient Christianity, and something not seen to anywhere in the world at this point. Maybe somewhere, but not that we can really identify easily. In every society up to this point, except for maybe the ancient nomadic people, but probably even then too, there was always one leader, one group of leaders, one oligarchy or one monarch who ruled everything. You see that in Mesopotamia, you see that in Egypt, you see that in India, you see that in China, you see that everywhere in the world where civilization rose up. Because there's one person at the top. There's no, there's no idea where we're all the same. And so it's important to keep that in mind. Because that's the message. There's equal, you're all the same, you should treat each other nicely, you should be good to each other, you're all brothers and sisters, you're all going to go to heaven at the end of this, and when you get there, it's going to be wonderful, and Jesus died for your sins. All this message is like profound to a group of people who are living in an empire that's crumbling. That the society, you're losing connection. Listen, there was a point in Roman times when you could guarantee but like today, we can buy anything we want online, and it can be shipped to you within a certain number of days. The same was true in ancient Rome. The same thing could happen in ancient Rome. The ancients were on top of that. The ancient Romans had a great supply network. Their roads were second to none. Nobody made a connection system like that between each other until the Germans of Nazi Germany with the Autobahn, and then later in America with our highway system, our interstate highway system. No other place in the world do you see an interconnecting kind of mesh that's not just followed by rivers like you do in ancient Rome. They also, as a sport, the Romans would say, okay, we're going to put a road in here. Like some people want to, you might want to go out on a weekend and play ball with your friends. The Romans, there were generals who said, well, we got to get these people to work. They're all working for Rome. Gaius Marius is famous for that. He would make his soldiers, because they were getting paid to serve in the military, and if there wasn't a fight to go on, he would say, okay, these 4 legions are going to build a road. They're going to fix up this road. We're going to build this building here. We're going to put an aqueduct in. We're going to improve civic improvement. And he'd have the Roman legions doing it. So it wasn't an uncommon thing to have, and he was during a republic time period before it was an empire, important to note. And so he, Gaius Marius and generals like him used, and governors like him used to make this great interconnecting system of roads. So if I wanted a spice that was specially made in, say, what is today Egypt, or Syria, or maybe even in India, in another country, it would be bought in the furthest extent of the Roman Empire, and you could guarantee within a month you would have it in Great Britain. That's the kind of, I mean, it's not the great system of like, you order something from Amazon, you get it 2 days later, or Walmart 2 days later in our system, but it's comparable for the times. And you would be able to get whatever you needed. Snails, which is a great delicacy for the ancient Romans. I'm not going to try to explain it, but it is. It was. The mushier, the tastier, apparently. You could buy them in a Roman market that were grown in Africa, on the far side of Morocco. You could, you could buy them in Britain, and that's key to understanding. It was a great society for the people at the time. It was very civilized. It was very much interconnected, just like ours is today. And then, in the space of a few years, it was within like a decade or two, it went from holding itself up, barely, by the way, to complete collapse. And having the city of Rome finally sacked, and the population of Rome went from 1.1 million to 8,000 in like a space of a decade. Massive die-off and massive destruction. The empire was cut in half. The Western Roman Empire fell apart. The Eastern Roman Empire survived. Not to get too detailed into it because I don't want to bore you with it or distract you from it, but the idea is that can happen anywhere. It can happen anywhere with the structures of the society breaking down. And in that part, there's opportunity for new ideas to come to fruition. And the idea of Christianity, which is very attractive, was something that did. It was very attractive to a lot of people in the ancient world. All right, so I'm at over 12 minutes with this. I'm going to give you a key. Something I just said in this last 12 or almost 13 minutes now, is going to be something I test you on for the next 2 days in your do nows. Today, I'm recording this Wednesday night, so Thursday and Friday you're going to have to find information in this, and hopefully you will. Talk to you soon. If you need to meet with me on your grades or something, or if you're really confused about this, email me persistently until I respond. I will do my best. I will gladly talk to you about it. I will gladly, Zoom meet with you, or call you on the phone if you need to. Whatever it takes to help you get this message through. Okay, folks. All right. Talk to you soon.